How Polish became England's second tongue. This is gonna be super interesting. I've traveled last year to London and there were so many supermarkets run by Polish people. I mean, I was there all the time. Although I haven't stayed for long in London, but all the time I will be buying stuff both in the morning and for lunch. I mean, it was so cheap. It was incredibly cheap. The food. It was like, I don't know. There was these huge things for breakfast. I don't remember the name actually. But yeah, they were really big and they were pretty cheap. And also the sandwich, they will give you like a sandwich for €3. I think it was like 2.70 pounds or something like that. They were so fucking huge. Oh my god. I will eat that for lunch and I will be good for the rest of the day. That was incredible. So yeah, Poland was very relevant in my trip to England, in my past trip to England. This video is going to be very interesting. Let's check it out.
The most popular language in England is, unsurprisingly, English. Things get a lot more linguistically interesting, however, when we look into the tongue that takes silver in this home nation of the United Kingdom. You may expect England's second most spoken language to maybe be something native.
Wait, do we have subtitles? I'm gonna put Polish subtitles since it's maybe you won't all understand what he's saying. Okay, it should be okay, I guess.
To the island, like Welsh, Scottish Gaelic, Scots, or even Cornish. Yet this isn't the case at all. The second most widely spoken language in England is instead a tongue which has its origins in Central Europe. Polish. With somewhere between 600,000 to 700,000 speakers, Polish is by far the second most spoken language of England. This is just England.
That's crazy. There's all those Polish speaking people in England, 600 to 700,000. That is a lot.
Bear in mind, not the entire UK. If we judge the entire UK, including the three other nations that compose it of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, then it becomes the fourth most spoken, and Welsh and Scots wedge themselves between Polish and English. What this does mean, however, is that within England and the entire United Kingdom, Polish is the most widely spoken non-native language in the country. Other foreign tongues spoken in large numbers in the UK include the likes of Romanian, Punjabi, Urdu and Portuguese, but none of these come close to the number of speakers Polish has in the country. What makes Polish's ascent as England's second tongue even more remarkable is the fact that it attained this title relatively quickly. It only took a couple decades for Polish to become a niche language in England to its second most spoken, and those couple decades happened fairly recently too. I'm sure many people in the UK will remember the arrival of Polish in England, as the majority of the language's migration took place over the 2000s and 2010s, and judging from my analytics, most of you were probably alive and conscious during this time period. I myself was alive during this period too, and in the 2000s I was a kid going through the UK schooling system. I remember things starting to change around the middle of this decade. All of a sudden new kids started turning up at school, kids who didn't speak English but instead the Slavic tongue of Polish. Adult speakers of this language could be found too in town and as neighbours. Shops that lay dormant on the high street were all of a sudden springing into life and being turned into Eastern European / Polish supermarkets, selling all kinds of exotic goods my child mind had never heard of before. It happened really quickly, and as a child, I and many other kids didn't really know the context behind it, and it was never really explained to us why this was happening. It's only now I'm older and enough time has passed that I can look into this phenomena as an adult and as a historical event. And it seems that one singular event in the 2000s really kicked off this mass migration of Poles to England, with that being something that happened in 2004. For context, I was like 9 or 10 in 2004. I wasn't paying all that much attention to the geopolitical situation of Europe. I was probably watching SpongeBob or drawing Sonic OCs at the time or something.
Yeah, I mean...
And obviously the Polish language didn't go from non-existent in England to omnipresent in one fell swoop in 2004. It happened over time, and of course Polish existed in the UK prior to this year too. Polish is unsurprisingly a product of Poland, the Central European nation nestled between Germany and Belarus. It's part of the Indo-European language family and sits on the Slavic branch, one of the three key branches of Europe along with Romance and Germanic. Yet the Slavic branch breaks down even further, with Polish being more correctly a West Slavic language, along with the likes of Czech and Slovak. Other Slavic languages like Ukrainian and Bulgarian can be found in.
So can you actually understand when Bulgarian people speak? Because I already checked out the video before that. What was it? Was a Polish woman, and then they were trying to understand the Ukrainian girl and the Slovenian girl, but they didn't say anything about Bulgaria. So maybe Bulgarian is similar to Slovenian. I'm guessing.
In the East Slavic and South Slavic branches, respectively. All of these languages would have emerged from some kind of Proto-Slavic language. The speakers of this hypothetical tongue would have split up to different parts of the land, and from there, their languages would have mutated. The earliest form of a unique Polish language, simply dubbed Old Polish, came into being in the 10th century. This ties in nicely with the founding of the Kingdom of Poland, which was established in 1025. This is one of the earliest forms of a singular Polish land, and its borders are somewhat similar to the borders of modern Poland too. This kingdom also set Poland down a very unique path from a religious perspective too. The kingdom had Catholicism as their religion of choice. This broke away from other Slavic powers, who while were also Christian, chose the more Slavic Orthodox denomination of the religion. Catholicism was and is way more linked with the Romance-speaking world, the grandparent of the Romance branch, Latin being more or less the official tongue of the religion. The reason I highlight all of this is because having Catholicism as the key religion of Poland would go on to have a huge effect on the language there, as Polish borrows a huge amount of words from Latin, the language of Catholicism,
I had no idea.
more so than any other Slavic tongue. This makes it somewhat similar to English in a way, as that language too has a strong Latin influence. Poland in its many forms would stay Catholic, even to this day being one of the most Christian countries in the world, and Old Polish would eventually become the modern language of Polish too. During this time, Poles found their way to Britain. We of course have evidence of Polish people living in the UK/England/Britain/whatever you want to call it prior to 2004, but in most cases these were small groups or individuals who didn't alter the wider language of the land. Evidence of Poles in England goes as far back as the 16th and 17th century. Here, Polish traders and merchants lived in the UK trying to peddle their goods. Religious expats also found their way to the island as well. This was in the aftermath of the Protestant Reformations and Henry VIII's creation of the Church of England. Protestants in devoutly Catholic Poland wanted somewhere to worship their denomination in peace, and England offered that to them. The 19th and 20th century too saw more groups of Poles arrive in England. This was due to events taking place in their own nation, such as uprisings, and of course, the two world wars which swept over much of Europe and had a huge impact on Poland. These kinds of migrations did happen, but none of them were big enough to completely shift the language of England. This finally brings us back to the 21st century and that year of 2004. This was a big year in world history. It saw the release of Shrek 2 and GTA San Andreas. Yet it was also this year that the nation of Poland finally joined the European Union. The European Union, known more commonly as the EU for short, is probably something you've heard of. As the name implies, it is a union of European nations that share common interests, laws, and economic policies. One of the big features of the EU is the freedom of movement those within it benefit from. EU citizens can travel to, live in, and work within other European nations as if they were simply moving to another part of their own country. It also makes airport queues way easier. For example, someone from Germany, an EU nation, could simply go live and work in another EU nation like France or Italy or Spain with little to no red tape. It's understandable as to why joining the EU was such a big deal to Poland in 2004, as it opened up so much more of the world to them. Poles ended up migrating all across the EU after this moment, setting up lives in multiple countries. A large portion of Poles, however, set their sights on an island nation way out west, which was also part of the EU. Well, at the time anyway. We'll get to that. living in the UK and England in particular had a lot of benefits in the eyes of many Polish people, and multiple factors led to Polish speakers arriving here. A key factor was money. In 2004, Poland's economy was not in a good spot. Unemployment was high and wages were low. This meant that those who could get work weren't earning all that much. In the UK, meanwhile, there were jobs aplenty in 2004, and wages were 4 times higher than those in Poland. For those in Poland struggling
4
financially,
times
moving to England
higher.
felt like
Wow.
a no-brainer.
I mean, it's not even that insane if I think about it, because probably when I went to I lived for a couple of years, no, for a couple of months. What am I saying? Years? What the hell? I stayed a couple of months at my friend's place when he was staying in Newcastle upon Tyne, in the north of England, and I do remember that. Many people, when I would be talking to people, at least when I could understand people, because my English wasn't as great, and the accent, the Geordie accent, you can look it up. It's not that easy to understand at all. And my English was pretty shitty at the time, let's be honest. I was like 22 or 23 at the time. And I do remember asking people about, I mean, it came out. It's not like I started a conversation asking them how much they were earning, and they will say they earn like 3,000 a month or something like that, something along those lines, for a work as in a supermarket. That was insane to me. Like in Italy, when I was younger, when I was like 18, I worked in a supermarket for 2 months because I was replacing someone else that was sick, and they just paid me like 1,000. I mean, that's crazy. That's 3 times as much. Wow. And life wasn't even that expensive compared to Italy, in Newcastle at least. Probably in bigger cities. But I mean, it's always like that in bigger cities. So yeah, it's not that surprising. What the hell? 3 or 4 times more. Wow.
The UK was also way more accommodating to the new Polish arrivals at the time too. It was just one of the few EU nations that allowed Poles into their country immediately in 2004. Most
so
other
that is
countries
why-
had temporary restrictions in place which delayed their arrival. This made the UK even more inviting for those in Poland wanting to move across the continent. Also, moving for a better quality of life has long been a part of Polish identity. Many Poles in the past would move to countries like Germany for work, and of course
US.
in the 19th century, a huge influx of Poles found themselves in the halls of Ellis Island, looking to start a new life in the land of the free. Migration is seen as being in the bones of many Poles. Also, by 2004, Poland had only relatively recently come out of an extended period of communist rule. Poland was part of the communist Eastern Bloc, starting in the mid-20th century. Migrating to other parts of the Eastern Bloc proved difficult, and moving outside of it was practically impossible at the time. Communism fell in Poland in 1989, meaning by 2004, Poland had only been free of this rule for 15 years or so. Many in the nation will have strong memories of this time when movement was more or less impossible, so you can imagine they craved to explore and settle the wider world. All of this is the backdrop for what was actually going on in 2004 and the wider 2000s in the UK, while 10-year-old Patrick was still trying to figure out how to lock Mewtwo in Super Smash Bros. Melee or something. Yet I imagine this wasn't really explained to most kids, so we just saw Polish people in shops and words pop up in school and in town with little to no explanation. In reality, many of those coming over were single members of families, arriving here to work and sending their earnings back home so their family could have a better life in Poland. It takes an awful lot of courage to leave your home behind, and even more to leave your home and family. The influx of Polish people in the UK was seen by many as a bad thing. People coming over and taking jobs, that old chestnut. They were seen as putting a strain on things like schools and housing.
I mean, that's the oldest tale, right? The immigrant coming into your country to steal your job. That's, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure that even the Romans had that tale, right?
Many presumed they would cause antisocial behaviour. Others, meanwhile, saw their arrival as a great introduction of a new culture in the UK, with many Poles filling work roles that were going unfilled by British people. Plus, the work they did generated a huge amount of money for the country too. In the 20 years or so that have passed since 2004, it is thought that around 1 million Polish people have come to live in the UK and England. It's been this 20-year period which saw a huge rise in the Polish language here and saw it become England's second tongue. It's a remarkably quick rise for a language to gain prominence. Yet, just as quickly as Polish arrived in England, it may disappear, as in 2016, just 12 years after Poland joined the EU, a majority of people in the UK voted to leave the EU. This caused all kinds of nonsense in the UK and the wider world. Hello long queues at airport passport control. I just love having to wait in you for so long now and watching other people go past really quickly in the EU line. I absolutely adore that. Cheers, lads. But of course, this had a huge effect on not only Brits looking to live and work in other parts of the EU, but also EU citizens living in the UK, like the Polish. That freedom of movement they benefited from was now gone, and so were many other benefits. To many Poles, this has made living in England far less of a no-brainer as it was back in 2004. Many have left the country, with one source stating that around a quarter of the Poles living in the UK have since left. Hence why that initial number of 1 million has dropped to around 700,000 or so. Yet, that is still a huge amount of people, and more than enough to securely cement Polish as England's second tongue. And those who have stuck around celebrate their Polish heritage, with more and more Polish festivals and events taking place across the country. Polish's arrival in England and it becoming the second most spoken language here is something I find fascinating. It's linguistical history I've lived through, albeit as a kid and not fully understanding what was happening in the moment. I saw these people and their language arrive in the country firsthand, and saw how the country changed to accommodate them and their tongue. It's been truly fascinating to process this history into a YouTube video for you all. And if you happen to be a Polish expat in England watching this video, please let us know what your experience has been like from your perspective. I imagine not everyone's experience has been perfect. There's been a huge amount of negativity towards Poles in the UK over the last 20 years or so that I didn't want to dwell on too much here. But suffice to say, if you are Polish in the UK and feel like you're being mistreated in any way, my hearts and thoughts go out to you. Once again, feel free to tell us all down in the comments. But on a less personal note, something I find remarkable about Polish's arrival in England is the simple fact that it's a role reversal of what has happened throughout most of history. In most cases, the language of England, English, has found itself at home in corners of the earth it didn't originate in. Here we see a language finding itself at home in the home of English. Here's hoping everyone can get on nicely and be good housemates in the future.
That was a really cool
Name Explain
video.
depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel.
Okay, I'm gonna skip this part. You can check out Name Explain. I'm gonna subscribe because this was the first video I check out from this channel, and probably I will be coming back to see more videos from that channel. Wow, this video was really cool. It was really interesting, you know? Wow, it was amazingly done, I would say as well. This motivates me even more to learn Polish. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any experiences that you want to share, any anecdotes, better said, that you want to share to me about Poland and England, you know, or if you travel to England, something that happened to you that you just want to share it with me, yeah, do so. You can do it here in the comment section. You can check out the Discord server that we have. You can hit me up on Instagram. Yeah, options are countless. See you in my next video. Ciao, ciao.